Freem Family Brewers has opened up a second location in Milwaukee just south of Portland, so you're now less than a half hour away from their 20-plus taps of award-winning beer and consistently delicious food. Plus, they're in an old firehouse where they turned the old fire pole into a fully functioning tap, which I think is really cool. And if beer isn't really your thing, well, they also have 3 bars with seasonal cocktails. Freem Milwaukee is open daily from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Head over to freembeer.com for a full menu. That's PFRIEM beer.com. Doer Jeans is opening a store right here in Portland later this month, and if you haven't heard of them yet, let me tell you, they make stylish, comfortable clothes that are designed for a full day of living, from commuting to work to hanging out after. They're pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing without it looking like athletic wear. And you can try them out for yourselves now, because CityCast Portland listeners get 15% off your first order. Just mention the code CCPDX for your in-store purchase, or you can go online at shopdoer.com/CCPDX. That's shopdoer.com/CCPDX for 15% off your first order. With cooler weather on the way, now is the perfect time to replace any old drafty windows. And this month you get 50% off all window styles at Window Nation. Plus, you could put 0 down, make 0 payments, and pay 0 interest for 2 whole years. They also use high-quality Milgard windows manufactured here in Portland that come with a lifetime warranty. Schedule a fast free estimate now with Window Nation at windownation.com. That's windownation.com. License number OR2499065. Every year, Portlanders look forward to Vox's Swift season. That's when tens of thousands of these tiny birds fly in magical swirling formations all over town to roost in chimneys together, which is so cute. But last year, the largest flock roosting at Chapman Elementary since the 90s, by the way, dispersed, and they haven't returned. So today on CityCast Portland, Joe Liebezeit, the statewide conservation director for Bird Alliance of Oregon, is here to give us some insight on what's going on with the swifts and if they'll ever return to Chapman Elementary. It's Monday, September 15th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Joe, I feel like last time you were here, you spoke to our executive producer, John Notarianni. I was out of town. And it's become this lore within our group because immediately after he spoke to you, I'm not saying this is your fault, Joe, he made this joke like, oh, are the Chapman Swifts ever going to leave? And you said, no, they're never going to leave Chapman. And he was just like, yeah, I was just joking, whatever. The next day, gone. Literally the next day, absolutely gone. So our theory is that John chased them away somehow with his reporting and his jokes. But I wondered, did you pick up on that? Did you ever feel that? Because I know, it wasn't like the actual conversation. It was the airing of the show.
Well, let me put John's concern about his bad omen to rest. We actually knew what was going on last year. I just could not say anything because it was happening, Mm-hmm. We had noticed last year that the birds were coming back to Chapman, but they were in much smaller numbers. And so that was, we were like, that's interesting. And then we were seeing the numbers slowly going down and down throughout the beginning of September. And so I can't remember for sure, but I think when I talked to John, they were pretty much not using the chimney anymore. But we were still grappling on how to message that to the public. And so it was happening.
I see.
John should not feel concerned that there's any bad, vibes from CityCast Portland that had anything to do with the Swifts. I think the Swifts were determining themselves that they were starting to choose other sites.
Right. Is it normal for them to disappear like this? Because how many years were they at Chapman? Like decades, right?
Yeah, they have been at Chapman for at least since the 90s, maybe even earlier than that. I've had a hard time getting the exact year that they showed up there and started using it. But it has been, it's been at least more than 2 decades that they've been consistently using the Chapman Elementary chimney in pretty big numbers.
Right. And it's not normal for them to just peace out for a couple seasons and come back, right?
Not that we know of. I mean,
Okay.
unless like they were using Chapman like in the 70s before anyone was even
Oh,
monitoring.
gotcha.
I think what's unusual is that Chapman has been a really consistent chimney for years with a lot of birds going into it. And the public has gotten really, kind of comfortable with that and kind of like depending on that. But when you look at the data around sites, not just in the Portland metro area, but around the West Coast, because people monitor the swifts from British Columbia all the way down to Southern California, there are many instances, including here in the Portland metro area, of swifts, using a chimney for multiple years and then departing. And it's often puzzling why, but we do speculate on why, and we have data for some sites to try to look at and help us better understand what might be going on.
What I heard, the reasoning was like, oh, there was just a lot of predators. And I'm like, well, that's odd because we've seen for years so many hawks trying to get these swifts as they're going into the chimney. But we heard like, oh, there was just so many, that they got really spooked and they left. So I'm curious, Joe, if you guys have figured it out by now, like what it was that you think made the Chapman chimney no longer viable for them.
You're right. We do collect a lot of data. We collect, monitor predator activity. So, as you mentioned before, predators like Cooper hawks or peregrine falcons, or sometimes even crows, will visit the chimney, especially when the birds are going in, because they're very vulnerable during that time and they're kind of concentrated. So it's like this little dinner buffet for them to come and easily get a swift to eat. So we've looked at the data that we've collected over the many years of both predator activity and the number of swifts going in the Chapman chimney, and we have not really seen a correlation between less swifts and more predators or vice versa. So we're still scratching our heads about how important predators are. One thing I should mention is that we don't monitor the chimneys consistently in the morning because the birds are going in there, right, at night when all the people come at night to view them, but they leave in the morning. And it's been hard to monitor them in the morning because they don't always leave consistently right at dawn. They might wait an hour or two or three to leave. And so it's really hard to get the volunteers to go there and monitor them, especially because it's early in the morning. Who wants to get up really early to monitor? So there could be predators there in the morning, but we just don't know about. We haven't been monitoring.
Yeah, what other theories? I mean, I'm assuming you have possibly a theory as to why the Chapman swifts left, though.
Yeah, so, okay, that was the first one. The other thing we did last season after the birds left is we went to look up into the Chapman chimney. We thought maybe there could be some obstructions there, something preventing the birds from going in. We did that. We did not see any obstructions. So we ruled out that. Also, we looked at the number of people that come and sit on the grass to look at the birds, and we didn't see any correlation there either. Like there's many years we've had thousands of people on a given night sitting there, and it does not seem to affect the behavior of the birds.
Right.
However, in more recent years, we've been seeing more activity of people using recreational drones.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will use them close to the birds and even like swoop through the birds, which is kind of something ridiculous. Yeah. And in those cases that we've seen the swifts scatter, we've seen them come back and use the chimney. But, we know that drones are perceived by birds as a predator. And so if those kind of instances happen more and more, we do get concerned birds could leave. We don't know if the drone activity at Chapman caused them to leave because we only documented it a few times, but it's definitely a concern.
Did you ever catch anyone doing that, like a drone operator? And did you give them a talking to? Like, hey, because to me, it seems like common sense. Like, don't chase wildlife with drones or don't disturb a pattern of them going down with like, to me, it would appear like that is just like common sense humanity of like, don't be an asshole. But I can't imagine. I would be so flustered, like my words, like explaining this to someone who's like, what? What did you say to someone who was caught doing that?
Yeah, I wasn't there when that happened, but I did talk to some of our volunteers. And whenever we have an instance like that, we try to approach people in a non-confrontational way and assume that they just don't understand what they're doing is impacting the birds. That may or may not be true. But we did, I know in at least one instance, we did talk to an operator and they left. I think the tricky thing is that don't always see the operator of a drone. You can be,
Yeah.
you can be pretty far away and not see who's doing it. We did end up calling the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service a few years ago when we had that happen. And they were like, if it keeps happening, let us know. And we could potentially send an undercover U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agent out there and kind of investigate. So
you should have done it, because that would have been amazing.
Well, thankfully, yeah, that would have been amazing. It would have been a great story. But thankfully, we didn't document more of those instances of drones at Chapman. So, but we're definitely, being vigilant about that, because, as more and more people buy recreational drones and use them, we need to educate people on the best ways to use them without impacting wildlife. And we see this all over, because we're monitoring not just swifts in Portland, but we're also monitoring snowy plovers and endangered species on the coast. We're monitoring birds in eastern Oregon, and we are seeing more and more drone use and the impacts on wildlife.
Yeah, it's almost like there needs to be some legislation or some sort of something that explains.
There actually is legislation, and we're working with Oregon State Parks on developing regulations on where can you use drones, where can't you use them, and where can you use them some of the time on our 200 plus state parks and on the ocean shore where Oregon State Parks has jurisdiction.
Yeah, because have you ever been to Cannon Beach?
Yeah.
With the puffins and stuff. I wonder if some asshat has ever gotten too close.
Are you allowed to say all these words?
Yeah, it's a podcast.
Okay, great.
Joe, if you want to asshat it up, go for it.
All right. Well, it gives me free reign now to use expletives.
But yeah, I wonder if I'm sure they've seen some nonsense.
Yeah, we actually work really closely with the Haystack Rock Awareness Program. I'm actually on the board of Friends of Haystack Rock.
Oh, awesome.
And we monitor black oyster catcher, which is a type of bird that really is tied to like intertidal rocky habitats on the coast. And you're right. Yeah, that's one of the key places to look at tufted puffins, which are a species in decline, really drastic decline. And so I have heard of instances of drone use. So we're doing what we can, and we have really great volunteers out on the North Coast that are really engaged with the community and with Cannon Beach. Some of them are even on the city council to try to ramp up protections of the birds. And, I know a couple of years ago, the community out in Cannon Beach was able to get fireworks to be banned during the July 4th time on the beach, because that, like drones, fireworks can really affect wildlife in a really negative way.
And that's so special too. I know we're talking about the swifts and now we're talking about Cannon Beach, but it's so special. It's like every time I have people visiting me during September, we would always take them to the swifts. Same thing. Anytime it makes sense, we'll take them out low tide to Cannon Beach, because it's just the tide pools, the birds. You get to show it off, and the fact that we, humanity, can ruin it for everyone just because of, these things like fireworks and drones and God knows what else, climbing that rock.
That all said, though, a big part of our mission is to protect wildlife and habitats in Oregon. And so I think, what we try to do is inspire people to enjoy nature, but do it in a respectful way, so that's a big part of our messaging. And you have to use positive reinforcement there. So we really rely on positive messaging to educate the public on the best ways to enjoy the swifts and other wildlife.
Yeah. Joe, you keep that positive messaging. Here at CityCast Portland, you're a fucking asshole if you're going out there and you are using a drone.
All right.
Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you about where you think people can check out some of these swifts if they're still around. Traveling after Labor Day might be a cheat code because trails and beaches are less crowded and we're past all those scorching hot days. So if you're looking to explore a bit more of Oregon before the rains come, skip Airbnb and Vrbo and hit up Cascadia Getaways. They're locally owned and operated by Oregonians who love this state as much as you do. Plus, they're on average 5 to 15% cheaper than most of these larger vacation rental platforms. They've got stunning homes across Mount Hood, the coast, Central Oregon, and more. And if you're currently in the market for someone to manage your vacation property, Cascadia Getaways is always looking for local partners. Whether you choose to book with Cascadia Getaways or another property manager, remember just to book direct, book local, save money. It's a win-win. Visit CascadiaGetaways.com to book your next trip or connect with their team. That's CascadiaGetaways.com. Hey, all you wine drinkers out there, grape harvest is coming, and I know we're spoiled here in the Willamette Valley, but if you're looking to spread your wine tasting wings, I just made that up. Walla Walla Valley in Southeast Washington is home to more than 130 wineries offering great wines and new vineyard experiences. Like, I've actually been wanting to check out Abeja, which means bee in Spanish, by the way. Their grounds look beautiful, and four-time James Beard Award nominee chef Mike Easton heads their kitchen. And there are so many other beautiful grounds to explore that are constantly putting on special events and prefix menus. Plus, Walla Walla has a walkable historic downtown core where you can enjoy more farm-fresh fine dining from other celebrated chefs. It's just a scenic 4-hour drive away, and many of these wineries have adorable accommodations on their estates. Head over to wallawalla.org for more info and to plan your visit today. That's wallawalla.org. As some longtime listeners might know, I can't do dairy. I would love to, but my body does not allow it. And it's been so hard finding protein supplements or quick pre- and post-workout fuel on busy days because almost everything that's out there is either whey or milk protein dependent. Fortunately, Huel's Black Edition powder is 100% vegan, and it can either be used as the perfect post-workout recovery meal or as a quick meal if you just don't have time to cook. Huel, spelled Huel, is packed with 40 grams of plant-based protein and 27 essential vitamins and minerals. Plus, there's no added sugar and it's gluten-free. But most importantly, at least to me, is that it actually tastes good. It comes in flavors like salted caramel, chocolate, and cinnamon roll. And Huel just dropped a new product called the Daily Greens Ready to Drink. It's a sparkling beverage that comes in delicious flavors like blueberry, apple, and peach. It's made by dietitians, so it's also jam-packed with nutrients and fiber. You can try Huel for yourself with 15% off for new customers using code Portland at Huel.com/Portland. That's HUEL.com/Portland. Fuel your best performance with Huel today. So I know the Bird Alliance of Oregon is still keeping track of where their swifts are gathering around town, but I know you're also being a lot more careful about sharing where these spots are because there is concern as to, what is causing them to disperse, what's causing them to feel threatened. And also a lot of people don't want like thousands of people in their lawn. So I know you're not going to you're going to be like a mushroom hunter. You're not going to really tell us like, these are my spots and these are where we're going to go check. But if people want to maybe have an opportunity of seeing the swifts this season, is there like a general area that you're just like, keep a lookout for this, or, consider these things?
Sure. Yeah, no. So just to give you some context, because the swifts used Chapman for so many years, we were able to work over years to, with the community there, the local community that lives right around there, because there was lots of tension, people. The parking was a massive issue.
Oh my God, it was,
people trying to find parking there, trash, kids love to go down the hillside there at Chapman on the cardboard, which is really great. But a lot of times people forget to pick that up and all kinds of issues there with noise and traffic and all that. But we had worked with the Chapman Portland Public School and the community there for years to kind of iron out all those conflicts, and it worked really smoothly there. So now with the birds not at Chapman and going to other chimneys, what we're seeing is that they're using more chimneys around town, but in smaller numbers. And so that provides an opportunity for people to maybe see swifts at more places. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we want to be really careful about how you go about doing that for those reasons of we don't want to have people say, okay, well, I don't want the swifts here. I don't want people sitting on my property. So I'm going to cap this chimney and the swifts will never be able to get in there. So that's definitely what we don't want.
Gotcha.
So that said, you could go on social media, I'm sure. You could go on Reddit. You can find these places. And they are places around town. But what we are saying is that the best way is that you can enjoy the swifts, to protect the swifts, to be considerate of the communities is to, use public transportation if you can. If you're nearby a site, within a mile or so, walk to it or take your bike. And then be respectful of the landowner. If it's at a school or at a church, sometimes there is some lawn there, and sometimes you'll see people there, and it's probably okay in those instances. But if you don't see people on the property, or if you see security around, they may tell you to leave. Be respectful of that. Maybe view them from across the street if that happens. And if you do need to drive, just look around you and see where people are parked and try to park far away. Please don't leave any trash, things like that. It's just common
Totally.
sense things. And, again, if you're a drone user, that's fine, but please don't use them at the site because it's going to disturb the birds.
I know, I'm sorry. I just love that you're like, if you're a drone user, you can exist. Just don't exist at these spaces. It's
Yeah, I
so
mean,
positive.
yeah,
Hey, nobody hates you. You're fine. But if we
right,
see you
right.
at these spots, ah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we're messaging it to the public. And we also
Hmm.
have on our website, so if you go to birdallianceoregon.org and you go to our Swift Watch page, people can enter in a Google form if they're seeing swifts at a chimney,
Oh,
and we
gotcha.
monitor that. So we have the eyes and ears of the communities and people out there to let us know where they're seeing birds, to then go and scout out those sites and have our volunteers monitor them if we do see a significant number of birds. If there's like 50 birds going in a chimney, we're probably not going to invest a volunteer to go out there because there could be 100 chimneys like that in town. But if we
Totally.
see 500 or 1,000, we're definitely going to try to get out there and monitoring them as much as we can.
Right. So, Joe, right after the dispersal of the Chapman Swifts, you could see them like trying to find different chimneys, and
Mm-hmm.
they were trying to get into my chimney, but unfortunately, my chimney was getting torn down, and it had one of those caps that didn't allow for any birds to go in.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it, and I was just like, man, that sucks. Like, I wish that I could have provided something while that was happening because it was so many swifts that were
Yeah.
looking for a new home. And so I was curious, like, if there are people out there that want to provide a safe space for these swifts, what can they do? Like, I don't know, chimney mods or something,
Mm-hmm.
modifications where birds are allowed to go in, but like other critters are not, including the rain.
Yeah. We encourage people to, number one, especially if they know their chimneys have been used by swifts in the past, we encourage them not to remove them if they
Hmm.
can. When it's a large structure like Chapman, that's been really important. We actually worked with Chapman many years ago to retrofit it and secure it, and then they actually decommissioned their furnace there because swifts are declining. They're a species of conservation concern.
Hmm.
Their numbers have been declining for decades. They're not at the level of being listed under the Endangered Species Act, but historically they relied on large, hollowed out, old growth trees in our forests in the
Oh,
Northwest.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, before white people were here, they had to use something, right? There weren't chimneys around, so
Yeah.
they were using, and they still use them.
That is so cool. I didn't
Yeah,
think of
so
course, it's like, yeah, chimneys, of course.
right.
Yeah.
So the first step is don't knock down your chimney if you can help it. And you can call Bird Alliance of Oregon. We can try to work with you on that. If it needs some fundraising, we can try that. And if you want to put a cap on your chimney, there are methods to do it that still allow the birds come in. You leave basically a gap between the top of your chimney and whatever roof you have, structure you have for the cap. You leave a gap there so the birds can still get in, and that has seemed to work in some places. There have been attempts to build artificial chimneys. Unfortunately, the swifts didn't really use it, and it's really hard to know exactly what they're queuing into. They're queuing into things around the chimney, like access to insects for eating because they eat insects and things
Hmm.
like that. But they also are queuing into the chimney itself, and we know that they need in the interior of the chimney. They need like a rough surface because they have these tiny little claws. When they go in the chimney, they have their little heads pointing up, and their claws clamped onto the rough surface of typically bricks.
Hmm.
So if you have that kind of interior substrate for them to perch onto, that's ideal. If it's smooth, they're not going to be able to perch in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you think they're ever going to come back to the Chapman Elementary?
I think we would love it if they did.
I mean, would all
I
love
mean
it.
I guess I can't get in the minds of the little swifts. Like they're
Uh-huh.
going to do what they do, and I think people just need to kind of like think about it philosophically and be like, wildlife, they do what they need to do to survive. And if Chapman is appealing to them at some point in the future, they may come back, they might not. They are still around, obviously. They're using other chimneys. And so what we're seeing is the numbers that we've seen at Chapman have now moved to other places in town. So they're still around. They've just decided to stay in a different apartment hopefully for just a few years, then they'll come back to their original
I
apartment.
mean, we're hoping, yeah. How
Yeah.
long do you think people have this year? Like, how much longer is Swift season before, they're gone for the winter?
Yeah, so every year it's been pretty consistent. It's like a bell-shaped curve. The Swifts typically arrive at the end of August, beginning of September, and then they're gone by the beginning of October. So mid-September, like right around
Right
now.
now, right
Yeah,
now
right
is
now is a
peak.
great time.
Yeah.
And I will say that I won't tell you where, but I will say a couple of nights ago we had over 6,000 Swifts at one of the
What?
sites.
Oh, what a
Um,
tease,
so
Joe.
there are places that are around that you can enjoy seeing them.
Yeah, you just have to maybe Google it, maybe go into Reddit,
Yeah,
maybe pay Joe, maybe just a little. I don't know. What do you like, Joe? What do
I
you
don't
like?
know, man. I could get in trouble if I started doing that. Although one thing I've thought about for fundraising is that, when we went into the Chapman chimney last year to look inside to see if there's any obstructions, there was tons of swift guano, swift poop at the bottom
Yeah.
of the chimney. And, the couple of us that went in there, we grabbed some bags of that and I put it in my garden this year and my veggies are off the hook. So I'm thinking of maybe in our nature store at Birdlines of Oregon, we should sell little packets of Swift guano for like $30 each, and make some money.
That's a good side hustle. That's a good
Yeah. Although I think Portland Public Schools might want some of that too. So
I mean, are they going in there? They're not going in there, Joe.
that's true. It's true.
Well, before we head out, again, as we were telling you, John does feel a little responsible, and a big reason for that is because we make him feel responsible.
Oh,
we
good.
constantly are just
Keep
joking.
giving him shit. Okay,
Oh,
I said an expletive.
Yeah.
No, I think John should not worry. Really, I mean, it was happening when we were talking. It was like in the midst.
But you didn't tell him, and then he felt like, oh man,
Yeah.
and it did bother him because he's like, did I do this? So what we did is before he left, he actually taped an apology.
Oh wow.
To the Swifts, and he's just going to put it out in the world,
Okay.
and hopefully after this they come back.
The Swifts will hear and come back. We will see. You never know. I mean, if that happens,
Yeah.
I don't know. John is going to be. We're going to have to start calling him the Swift Whisperer.
Well, let's play it, Julie. I want to hear. I haven't heard it yet either, but I was told this is what happened.
Dear citizens of Portland, I want to sincerely apologize for inadvertently frightening all of the Swifts out of Portland last fall. I truly did not anticipate that taping an interview with the Bird Alliance of Oregon would inspire our beloved birds to leave Oregon en masse. And while I don't entirely understand the causal relationship between these two events, Claudia insists it's true science. So, as a believer in science and in birds, again, I apologize. To the Swifts of North America, please accept my formal apology and come back to Chapman Elementary School.
Do you think that's going to work?
I don't know. We'll have to see. You'll see. Maybe tonight. We'll see him there, and John will be vindicated, and we'll have to celebrate.
Yeah, we'll all go help you scoop some of that guano, and and yeah, just hold hands, celebrating. I think that's a great idea, Joe.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, thanks again for giving us your time and for all the work that you do. Seriously, every time I'm out there and see you guys out there counting and interacting with us, telling us how, making the experience just that much more engaging and thoughtful, like, we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, we have lost with the Chapman phenomena, we have lost the ability in some ways, at least at that site, to talk to the public about, why birds are important and how it connects in with our bigger conservation work. And it's a really difficult time now in the world. There's a lot of attacks on our environmental bedrock laws. And so the more we can encourage people to enjoy Swifts, the better. And I think now we're in a different situation without them at Chapman, and public will just need to be creative and find them elsewhere and get inspired to enjoy the Swifts and protect nature.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Joe.
All right. Take care.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or rate and leave us a good review. It really helps us out. And don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm for all the details. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.